So welcome everybody. I'm Jeremy. Some of you have spoke with me before, and today we're spotlighting one of the most talked about short-term rental markets in the country right now. The Whitefish and Glacier National Park area in Montana has been attracting a lot of attention from investors. Tourism keeps climbing, the airport keeps expanding, and the buyers are increasingly looking at mountain destinations that offer both lifestyle and strong STR performance. But the big question investors always ask is, what are properties actually doing in that market right now? So today we're going to go straight to the source. I'm joined by Scott Reese, who works directly with investors buying short-term rentals in Whitefish and Glacier National Park area. Scott, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, good morning. Well, thank you, Jeremy. And
yes, sir.
To echo Jeremy's comments about technical difficulties yesterday, when you mess with the bull, you get the horn sometime, and that's kind of what we dealt with. So appreciate everybody coming back and sharing with us and taking the time to learn a little bit about what I refer to as the last best place. That's oftentimes a slogan for Montana or Big Sky country. And now today we're going to talk about the last best ski town, and that's Whitefish, Montana, and what's just next. About 25 miles to the east, and that's Glacier National Park. So yes, great questions. What's really driving demand in the area is the fact that it's, I'll just give you a little market overview. It's kind of an experience-based guest avatar. Nature immersion is key. We do have Glacier National Park, which has 3 million visitors a year. And we're just kind of coming out of our other dual peak season, which is Whitefish and Whitefish Mountain Resort, which brings in 500,000 skiers a year. This was one of those years that it actually outperformed in the snow depth in most ski areas. And we're still kind of hanging in that kind of what would be considered upscale luxury market. We haven't exceeded that and gone into the ultra luxury like other markets like Jackson Hole, Vail, Aspen. So we're kind of from a acquisition standpoint, while prices are high, they're just not as high as you would expect to see in other markets. And that would include even going south and east a little bit down to Big Sky, Montana. So we're seeing good demand clearly from guests. It's not only Glacier National Park, the ski resorts, but drive-in tourism, because we're accessible from markets like Seattle. That's actually where the majority of my clients have come from lately. And then we get into events and festivals. The music scene is off the chart this year, literally off the chart. We have a great compression event in July called Under the Big Sky. That's going into its 8th year, which brings in another 20,000 visitors per day for a 3-day music festival, and then just music spread out throughout the country. So when you think about kind of your key mountain markets, Whitefish really caters to all of that. We have Whitefish Lake, we have the mountain scene, we have Glacier National Park, and then just to the south of us, if one was looking at their geography or wanted a quick geography lesson, we have Flathead Lake, which is the largest freshwater lake west of the Great Lakes. Absolutely stunning and beautiful. So anybody, it's as we get into maybe some more specific submarkets and opportunities in this area, we can touch on Lakeside, which is a great new community that's really going to play on the pillar of appreciation value add, and then obviously still be able to cash flow and have those tax benefits.
Very nice. Very good info. Appreciate that, Scott. Let's I'll tell you what, before we jump into the numbers, let's tell everybody, if you don't mind, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you ended up working in the Whitefish market.
Yeah, fantastic. So who am I? Who's Scott Reese? Scott Reese was born in Montana, raised in California, right in the town that I'm sitting in right now. So I'm doing a little bit of a California gold rush. I know the theme of this was kind of mining for gold in Montana, and we'll get into that. But so yeah, born in Montana, raised in California, and then I chose to leave the beaches of California and go to Montana State University in Bozeman to start my university career, and then transferred over to Missoula, my birth town. Got started in real estate back in 95, 96, residential sales in Missoula. Transitioned out of that, chased a career in healthcare for about 25 years. There was a return to real estate in Whitefish, Montana back in 05, 06. We did a 160 unit luxury condominium community, which was the first of its kind in Whitefish. We also had another key short-term rental market area. We called it Wisconsin 20. Anybody who's been to Whitefish knows Wisconsin. It's the main artery that gets you from downtown up to the ski hill. Had a 20-acre project there, but we all know the market kind of went to, pardon the language, went to shit. The mining was dry. There wasn't much gold in that particular point in time. So I went back into healthcare, spent 13 years. And then over the past 5 years, I've been doing exactly what we do every day at 𝗟ซี้. I jumped all in, started doing rehab renovation projects in Seattle. Spent last 5 years doing that, turning them into short-term rentals, flipping out of them, and then just doing what we like to call sometimes the BRRR process, but I did the SDRRR process, to where, you know, rehab, refi, cash out, and repeat. So that's kind of what I've been doing. But I came back home. My daughter's going to school in Bozeman now, so super proud of that. And that was my ticket to put Washington in the rearview mirror and come back to Montana. Loving every minute of it. And then discovered 𝗟ซี้in the process, and it's been a marriage made in heaven.
Very cool. Good to hear. All right, Scott. Well, for someone who's never visited Whitefish before, how would you describe it? What makes this area such a draw for visitors?
It's exactly that. It's going back to kind of the nature immersion. You have the lakes, you have the fishing, you have the hiking. Anybody who's really, and that kind of speaks to the guest avatar too. Once you come to Montana, many leave a changed human. It's just as the beauty is beholds itself. And if you do love anything outdoors, and then it's just quaint, like good people in Montana. The community is fantastic. And it's drawn lots of visitors. It's long time been visited by Canadians, our friends to the north, coming out of Calgary. So that's been on their map ever since 30, 40 years. I've been coming to Whitefish since I was a young laddie. And once you come, it's hard not to put it on your fave list. Glacier National Park speaks to itself. The beauty, I've been to a lot of places and fortunate and blessed to go to Spain and Italy and see some of the mountains and everything that draw. I've been to Colorado, Utah. I just drove through Utah for spring break in a conference there. The Wasatch Mountains are great, but there's something about the Great Rocky Mountains that keep you coming back. And once you put your eyes on Flathead Lake, it'll leave an impression on you that makes you want to return time and time again. So that guest avatar is not kind of a one and done. It brings the same guests and visitors back year after year, simply for the beauty, the community, and what you have to experience from the nature that's right out your doorstep.
Very nice. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I did want to ask too, Scott, when someone stays in a short-term rental, like in the Whitefish area, what does that experience usually look like for that renter?
Yeah, fantastic. So if you're going right downtown Whitefish, very walkable community. They have a great trail system that actually can take you straight from downtown Whitefish out to Whitefish Lake and City Beach, or you can go to the lodge, which is fantastic. So miles and miles of trail system. So good for anybody who likes to hike, run, bike. Mountain biking is a big scene in the area as well. So, and then once you step outside, and that's just where, as we start to think from an investment standpoint, proximity is key. So if you're going to be close to downtown Whitefish, you're going to get that dual peak season. If we start to go out to some of the other sub-markets that I speak about anytime I do introduction discovery calls, we speak about Glacier Corridor, and that's going to get you closer to the park and easy access to the park, and you can get lost in Glacier National Park for weeks if you want to. In the middle is a town called Columbia Falls, which has seemed to hit the radar screen a lot. Very central proximity between downtown Whitefish and Glacier National Park. You get a little bit of a better value add opportunity there. And then if you go down to Lakeside, which is about 30, 45 minutes to the south, you're going to have that whole lake experience, right? Everything that's, you know, great for families coming to visit, multi-generational couples retreats, all that other stuff. But if you're coming and looking to stay in a short-term rental indoor, it's all nature immersion, wellness focused, great restaurants, great. You have your local, well, not only restaurants and events that are happening throughout the summer months and in winter. winter. We have Winter Carnival. President's Day ski weekend is a big weekend, family weekend. You get Family Week in Canada. So it's all about that. It's all about
Nice.
being out in nature, and then obviously having the key amenities that you like to kind of put around your experience, as far as restaurant and community and just festivals and everything else that comes with that. So it's a good one. I've been to a lot of different places, but once again, you come once, you're going to come back again.
Right. Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Sounds amazing. I do want to ask you as well, are most buyers that you see in your markets, are you seeing people that are local, or are they coming from out of state generally?
Yeah, fantastic question. Forever is kind of, once again, it's kind of the last best place and last best secret, but it's been discovered. You mentioned the airport, and the airport's continuing to expand. You might find that it's one of the most beautiful airports you've seen with all the renovations they've done recently. It's a touching point that we should talk about, because it's obviously they're resurfacing the runway this summer, so that's going to extend people's stay this summer, just due to the fact that it's only weekend travel from the airport this weekend. But to your point, yes. Let me put the thought back on that. I apologize, Jeremy. Where did you go with that?
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I was just asking if you see a lot of people buying that are locals to Montana. Yeah, are they out of state mostly?
I didn't want to advertise it too much, but we get direct flights. People are coming predominantly out of California, Texas. It's on Texas radar. They used to go to Aspen, Vail, Jackson Hole. Aspen if you want to be seen, Jackson Hole if you want to try and be in that scene but disappear. It's similar to that. So see a lot of Texas plates on the street. We see a lot of Utah. Of course, it's a drive-in community, so it's drivable from Utah, indoor Seattle. So we have a lot of Washington, of course, our friends to the north out of Canada. And then we're even starting to see a lot of people coming from as far as Florida and New York. So it's being advertised a lot. And then anybody who's seen that show on Paramount called Yellowstone, Montana's definitely on the map. Now, while that kind of plays in more to Bozeman and Big Sky, obviously once you get to Montana and the western part of the state, it all becomes very similar. So yeah, we're getting a lot of out-of-state investors. The two that I have currently under contract, well, actually all three of them, they all have come from Seattle, ironically. So I don't know if they're following me, but that's okay. They're welcome to come.
That's what it is. You've got a fan base, and they're all following you there.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, Scott, let's talk about numbers for a minute.
Sure.
Where are investors typically entering the market right now? Kind of wanted to touch base on like condo pricing versus townhomes versus like single family homes, and what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, fantastic. Great question. I really break it down into 4 submarkets, and those 4 submarkets being Whitefish, Glacier Corridor, Columbia Falls, and Lakeside. So I'll just start there. In Whitefish, you're getting kind of more, I mean, if you're going to go in and try and find a 3, 4, 5 bedroom, which is kind of that sweet spot, the bare minimum entry price is going to be 1.5 million, and realistically, it's going to be up in that 2 million range. So that's really going to get into, obviously, what you need. You're going to drive higher ADR out of that, indoor guest stays, and you're going to get basically a true year-round season. So that's going to be helpful to get the revenue to make it a good cash-on-cash investment, and then obviously the appreciation play. I just recently put a condo, 4-bedroom, 4-bath, brand new construction under the market for just over $1 million. So that's kind of the entry price for kind of that townhome condo in Whitefish. You're going to be looking to spend on the low end $1 million to realistically 1.4 is what we're seeing. If you go into the housing market, once again, you're probably going to be closer to that 2 million, 2.5. If you want to get anywhere that is, and this is highly recommended, you have to have views, you have to have proximity. You need to be either up ski and ski out on the mountain or close to downtown Whitefish, indoor the lake. And those properties going to be in that 2 million range. I think a value add opportunity would be going just to the east of Columbia Falls. I mentioned that. You can get yourself acreage, barns, nice 4-bedroom, 5-bath homes. And that price range is going to be 900 to 1.1 will get you a very good property in Columbia Falls. Have a couple right on the mind, and they're going quick too. So I'm going to speak about seasonality, and timing is critical too, but just to summarize kind of what each area offers as we go out closer to Glacier. Just getting ready to close on a newer construction 2-bedroom, 2-bath cabin. And in that market, you really can play with smaller properties. And I'd say the key sweet spot super property opportunity in the Glacier corridor, which would include some, just to throw out some names that if people are familiar with the area, or if they're not and they're looking to look at the map and say, okay, what's he talking about Glacier corridor? Some refer to it as the Glacier Line or Glacier Canyon, but those are little towns called Hungry Horse, Coram, Martin City, and then West Glacier, which is the entrance to the park. In that, you can find, I had a short sale under contract for $500,000. I have a closing next week that's going to be in the low 700s, and the high mark out there would be kind of 850. And those properties are all able to do, even in a shortened seasonality, 180 days to 240 days, they're doing 80% occupancy on average and grossing in the $900,000 to $110,000 range for having a super
return.
Yeah, so those are the ones that you see me is actually kind of interesting that we're talking about that, the very first daily listing. So all of our savvy fans out there that watch our daily listings, that was the very first property I posted out there when I joined Savvy back in early January. And that's the property that's selling today. And it's a turnkey short-term rental. And then just to touch on that last market, big side going further south, that's going to be an appreciation play. And we can get happening there. Group called Discovery Land Group that's doing a new development of high-end luxury, might be pushing the ultra luxury market. But down there, you're able to get a 3 to 5 bedroom home. You can probably on the low end, 800, right into that low $1.1 million range. But the appreciation, and this is a key thing just to talk about what's been happening in Montana in the last decade, appreciation and home value has gone up 200%. That's significant. Wow. In the past 3 years. Yeah, past 3 years, year over year, and this is kind of including all markets together. It's been averaging 10 to 11%. Now we're off 20 to 30% this year, and we are seeing properties that you can come in and there's price adjustments, price improvements, we'll call them, and that's been down 20 to 30%. But you're still looking at year over year appreciation in that 6 to 8% range. Which is double, if not triple, most other markets. So while it's a little bit higher to come in, we still haven't hit the ceiling in this market, being the last best place.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, you know, all things considered, what does inventory look like in your market and in general right now? You know, between the corridor and Whitefish, like, is inventory?
You already see me smiling, Jeremy. You had to go there, didn't you? Yeah, so scarcity a little bit, to be honest with you right now. So it's right now, it's timing is everything, because we're getting ready to go into our peak season, clearly, which will have a little bit of a lull in April. So I almost kind of see our timing right now and the seasonality similar to kind of what we get at the end of the year, and any of those that are chasing cost segregation need to be in, hence why I had 3 under contract at the time. Because you want to be able to close on those properties, get them designed, do any of the amenity stack upgrades, and get those properties relisted here in the next month to be able to capitalize on the true peak season, which kicks off at the beginning of May and runs through the end of September. So those investors that have been working with me lately, I apologize. Those daily listings have been a little bit harder to find. Just because, once again, in Whitefish, we have fairly strict regulations. As we get out into Columbia Falls and Glacier, those are unincorporated Flathead County. So it's a conditional use permit, if anything at all. Most operators, while I don't recommend it, don't even go through the process of getting them permitted. So we kind of have free reign in those areas. So are there opportunities out there? Yes. But I would say if you're looking to invest and take advantage of your best opportunity in gross revenue, we need to get those properties identified and under contract here in the next couple weeks. So you have the opportunity then to get in to do your design, obviously get them furnished. We are scarce, Jeremy, to your question, on truly turnkey properties. There's a handful of them at best. There's just not a lot of turnover in that area. We have some of the condo townhome product in downtown Whitefish that is available, but they're at the 1.4 price range. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think they're good investments. I'll just, I'm trying to find people, the ones that are closer to $1 million or just over $1 million, as well as the properties out in Glacier. That's and there's a couple of them available at this point in time, but we need some inventory. So I'm working hard every day to try and find that inventory and find those perfect opportunities. And I have 2 or 3 that are going to hit the daily listing, but right now we are a little scarce in that area, and timing is critical.
Okay, understood. And just also, I know this is probably a tough question to try to kind of encompass all, but if you could throw an average out there, what would you say a typical STR could earn in your area? I know a lot of that depends on positioning and property avatar, size, even location between ski and lake locations, things like that. But just kind of in general, what do you think it's on the higher end for earnings potential within your market?
No, and that's the honest answer. I think that's where the opportunity. We like to throw around super property, whatever you want to call it. I use that language, obviously, by one of the people I follow in this inner circle. I think anybody who hears super property might know who I'm referencing, who's obviously an investor in Whitefish as well. But bottom line, I think this is when you think about kind of the 4 pillars of when you're investing, cash flow being generally number 1 for most people, obviously appreciation being number 2, debt service or debt pay down being 3, and then obviously tax benefit being 4. We have a couple factors that kind of impact this marketplace. On a just straight cash flow standpoint, if you're looking at properties, and these are, I'm just going to take kind of your mid-scale, upscale range. If we look at Whitefish in particular, and I would say don't even come into this market if you're looking to be mid-scale or average. You can't. It's not going to the acquisition prices are high enough to where you're going to have to play in that upscale, if not luxury range, or have the amenity stack to drive that demand and obviously drive that gross revenue. So to answer your specific question, if we're in Whitefish, the good properties, the high end's $200K for those handful of properties that are doing it right, but the average is probably more in your 130 to 150 range. But you got to think about an acquisition price of, $1 million to 1.5. Okay, so if we start to transition now to Columbia Falls and Glacier Corridor, once again, Columbia Falls, your average earnings is going to be in that 90 to 110 range for the proper property. If you throw the amenity stack in there, this is just a fun fact, only 17% of the properties have in that kind of mid-scale to upscale range have hot tubs. Hot tub's a given. Wow. And then I'd even go so far to whether it's a hot tub and or barrel sauna and or the enhanced fire pit with the party lights and all that other stuff. And then if you happen to have a barn that you want to throw a pickleball court in, fantastic. But there's only a handful of properties that, if you think about other markets that we talk a lot about across the country, especially if you're thinking about the Smoky Mountains, you're not going into the Smokies without doing hot tub, barrel sauna, swim spa, arcade, movie theater, right? If you're throwing in, taking advantage of a detached garage or a barn and throwing in a movie theater, arcade, game room, that's going to set you apart in this marketplace. And then you're going to be able to do probably 10 to 20% higher gross revenue, no matter the sub-market we're doing. We go out to Glacier Canyon. We pinpointed and ran a pro forma on the little 2-bedroom cabin, acquired once again in the low 700s, and they're anticipating doing 90 to 100 on that property. Doesn't have a hot tub at this point in time. Doesn't have a barrel sauna, right? Doesn't have a fancy fire pit. With Adam Mini stack alone, that property is going to become a super property overnight. And it'll draw in that 90 to 100K in a shortened seasonality window of only 180 to 240 days. So key things. To your point, positioning is key, proximity is key, amenity stacks key. And then I'm going to throw out the other one. If you're not leveraging revenue management in this marketplace, you're not going to win. You have to be able to play into, obviously, how do you increase your shoulder seasons? How do you track pacing and pricing? That's going to be critical to really achieve and be successful in this market. You can't come into this market the average. It's not going to work.
Okay. Well, yeah,
That's why you're with that. You don't allow that to happen.
Exactly. Well, we already you touched on occupancy a little bit earlier as far as getting the most, 80% roughly out of your primary season stretch there. But what would you say you see typical ADR run within your market there?
Yeah, so all those numbers are increasing. If we looked at them, whether we're looking at ADR, occupancy, RevPAR, any of those combinations, I'll just focus on the ones most people are kind of familiar with, ADR and occupancy. So we're starting to drive higher ADR rates. Once again, that really changes based on seasonality. I mean, your averages, if you're looking at an annualized basis, it'd be down into 100 to 125 per bedroom, I think would be a safe range to talk about. The super properties are doing clearly more than that, but as you go into the summer months and the peak season, you're getting more 200 to 300 per room per night. So that might be the easiest way to explain it versus locking in on a specific, hey, it's 500 to 600 or whatever. I'd just say, hey, focus on 100 to 125 a night per bedroom. And that would hold true no matter what sub-market we're talking about, and then pushing that 200 to 300 per bedroom per night as we go into the peak season.
Okay. That sounds good.
And then occupancy part, let's touch occupancy, same thing. The average occupancy, if we're looking at AirDNA, B&B Calc, SDR Insights, Rabu, any of those platforms that we do to analyze properties and performance, you would be seeing on average in that 50% range, 50 to 55. And that's if you're looking at it from an annualized basis, or even if you're looking at it from kind of a RevPAR basis. But that changes, right? As we go into peak summer season, that window of about 180 days between May and into September, you're going to see 80 to 85. The best properties are 90, if not 100% occupied.
Okay,
but
great.
That's where you have to come to a local and schedule a discovery call and get into the numbers, because if you look at it from the outside, you'd be like, what's he talking about? Everything I'm seeing on Airbnb looks like it's low. It's in the 30s or the 40s, or the ADR looks low, and it's like, right, you're getting a score and the score looks like it's in the 50s. But if you look at the revenue growth and the investability, that's where we start to get the 80 to 90 scores. But once again, it's very important to truly understand what's going on behind the numbers, because the numbers just on the outside don't tell us everything. So reach out, give me a call. I'm here to help explain.
Absolutely. Scott, I wanted to ask you also is, I'm sure you've got variability, of course, between like ski season, in the more in the winter time, and then you've got like a little more summer tourism, I guess, for the glacier parks. But I did want to ask, is there one season that tends to surprise investors with how strong it is overall for, but between your markets there? Yeah,
no, great question. Peak season's the given season. I think that the season that's going to start to surprise people more, because it is the last best ski town, is the winter month. Yeah. Okay. So the winter month, and then what actually, and you'll if you're on any of the community groups, and if you happen to be on the Glacier National Park community group, they're really trying to see how they can maximize the shoulder seasons, and we are starting to see great demand. Case in point, the Glacier condo that we're closing on next week, we opened up because we're transferring the bookings and trying to figure out the opportunity that the owners are going to have to be able to do their design updates, and the calendar is booked in April. We have a 1 week window that we can get in. Otherwise, it's already booked, right? So that's speaking to how can you, and historically, April and October would be kind of our off months, the two lowest, right? Kind of at the end of ski season being the end of March, and then the beginning of summer season being starting as early as May. So those shoulder seasons are even starting to get gaps up. But I'd say overall, it's the winter season and the fact that people are willing to come, and some of the best times to be in Montana are spring and fall.
Okay. Yeah, I bet.
On the
Yeah,
outside shoulder sides. Yeah. So if you once again can capitalize on that and have a property that's going to draw that demand, you're going to be winning. And it's just that much more to your annual revenue growth. So
nice. Okay, that sounds good. I was going to ask you also just a little advice for new investors to your area. If someone's considering their first STR purchase in Whitefish, what advice would you give them? Like, what would you say the best piece of advice that kind of shines above all others?
Yeah, I think once again, while the two clients that most recently, all three of them, I do a lot of calls, right? And some of those calls are, I have to explain to them where Whitefish, Montana is. And have you ever heard of Glacier National Park? Or have you ever heard of the Flathead Valley and Flathead Lake? That's going to be tough. I think this is one that while we can do it and I can give you the best video tour in the world, I can't capture everything that the Northwest Montana has to offer in a 30-second video, or even a minute video, or 10 30-second videos, right? Like, I think once you lay your eyes on it, that's going to be the lasting impression of why you want to invest here. And it's a great question, Jeremy. I think this is predominantly, this is a second home market, or for those that are doing well in life, it's their third or fourth home market. But it's a second home market, lifestyle asset. And as a first-time investor, I would like to believe, could you look at this market as like a straight investment potential, but what you're going to pay to acquire a property in Montana, I think you could take that money and go to other markets if it's a truly just a straight investment for you. Hence why the three that are under contract right now, they all live in Seattle, or they all live close, or they're in California, or they're in Texas, but they're familiar with Montana, and they've been here at least once. When they did come their first time, it left a lasting impression on them, and they want to come back, right? Yeah. So it's a great question. Like, is it a true, both that are under contract and closing, those are first-time STR investors, and they believe in Whitefish, and they believe in the market, they believe in the potential. And once, I'm going to leave names out of here for anonymity, but once they came, he goes, I get it now. I get it. Like, and this particular buyer has been to multiple other markets. He's been to the Tahoes, he's been to the Californias, he's been to Mammoth, he's been to Jackson Hole, he's been to Colorado, but he landed in Whitefish, and he goes, I get it now.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely seems like, a location that should be completely engulfed with all the senses.
Yes.
To see it and smell it, and I could just sounds
and get a feel for it. I think once again, that's part of this game, because you're also, by having that experience and getting the vibe of the community, you're also seeing what's drawn guest avatar, right? For the same reason, right? Why do people come here? Okay, now I get it. Right now, granted, Glacier gets 3 million visitors, but we're also kind of tucked up in the northwest corner, right? We're accessible as far as travel, whether that's drive-in travel or the airports, and we have the United, the Americans, the Allegiants, Alaska Airlines. All the major airlines are coming in and doing direct flights, especially in the summer months. We have direct flights from New York, direct flights from Arizona, direct flights from multiple locations in California, direct flights from Seattle, right? So we get a lot of that guest avatar coming from those larger cities, but it's a completely different play than what you would experience in the Smokies, right? Or Asheville. for that matter, or the East Coast in Florida, where that's all predominantly driven by East Coast travelers. While we get some, this seems to be those folks that are kind of playing in the Western states. So
absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, Scott, I mean, thank you so much for your insight today, man. It's been a pleasure having you on here and discussing this. Yeah, can't wait to get this video out to everybody. Again, you know, everybody watching, sorry for the difficulties we had yesterday, technical issues, but yeah, so I want to thank everyone who, you know, is joining us, going back, watching this video. And if you're watching this and thinking about short-term rental this year, the first step is figuring out, you know, which market actually fits your goals. Scott and I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, and that's exactly what we do on our market match calls. So, you know, we'd like to connect you with, you know, Scott to have a discovery call, talk about Whitefish and Glacier Corridor. You know, if you know that market is not something of interest to you, of course we've got about any market for any preference, you know, as Savvy is, you know, has such a large presence, you know, across national markets. So we are creeping up on 40 markets that we represent now and actively expanding. So everything is going, you know, full speed ahead, and we've got great markets with great return on investment potentials. In every nook and cranny, I feel like, across the country. So, you know, if you like what you heard today, you want to discuss Whitefish, Glacier, we'll get you connected with Scott. Anywhere else, we'll be happy to connect you with, you know, our experts in those areas as well. So we're going to post a link along with this video for a market match call with my colleague Taylor or myself, so you can hop on the phone with us. Yeah, we'd love to, you know, talk about your goals with you and see how we can best match you for a market to give you the best return on your investment. So again, thanks everyone. We'll look for questions to follow since we're not running this live. We'll look for questions, Scott, if you don't mind, between, you know, myself and you. We'll kind of, after it hits YouTube, we'll check back frequently and just kind of take a look and see what we can answer for these folks. But yeah, all right. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in.
And once again, thanks everyone for your interest in the last best place and the last best market, mountain market. Happy to expand on anything that we discussed today. I don't know, Jeremy, are we putting in the link, obviously, how to get in contact with both of us?
Yes, absolutely. We'll get that added in. All right.
Good. Well, I appreciate your time and everybody's interest in the last best place. So take care.
All right.